Well, good morning, friends. I'm very happy to be among you again. It is a Zoom platform, but nevertheless, I feel connected with you spiritually, and if not physically, metaphysically. So thank you for being here. I have an offering today that will center around the idea of the fifth law of the spirit of our words and actions. We live the truth we know. We live the truth we know. And that is one of the broadest statements that can be made. And it applies all across the belief systems that I know of. I've looked at a bunch of them, as you have as well. And to see that we have this principle to live by means a lot as we connect with each other. And even people who are not present this morning with us, they will still get the message just by being open-minded and open-hearted. So now I have an instrument here with me. I have some flutes, but I need an accordion. I need an accordion. Now I see in my mind's eye that one of you has an accordion at your feet. What I want you to do now is push that accordion forward with your foot toward your desk, toward the computer. Go ahead, push it. I will not draw attention to you. Okay, push it more. I'm going to reach down and get, oh, good job. A little more, a little more. Whoa. Oh, look at this. Good job. Good job. So here it is now. What is this? This is a box with some harmonicas inside. And it looks big, it's a 120 bass, but you need knowledge. You only have about 20 buttons. And from that, you infer the other presences. Now, another friend of mine, he's not present this morning, but he once said to me, "Oh, John, you can never stop teaching." And while that may be true, I think it's important to realize how we have ideas that are fully present all the time. All the time. Now I'm going to reach over and get something else. One moment. Okay, thank you for your time and your presence. Everything is going great. So I'm going to play a few things for you, a couple of things, and I'm going to improvise on some of them later. And to be fully here now means to bear with this accordionist. This is the accordion that I wanted when I was beginning about 12, at the age of 7, and then later I took lessons, and I really wanted this one, a Philharmonic accordion, but it was expensive back then. My parents could not help me to upgrade the instrument I had, but in 1985 I reconnected with the accordion, and I was a grown-up then. And now I'm a grown-up. And now I can have anything I want as being a grown-up. You too. So I have a couple of Christmas songs here. And one of them is Un flambeau, Jeanette Isabella. And so I'm going to play that. It's Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella. Bring a torch, Jeanette Isabella. Bring a torch to the stable. Run. It is Jesus, good folk of the village. Christ is born, and Mary's calling. Ah, beautiful is the mother. Ah, beautiful is her son. Let's see. Oh, thank you. You're very generous. You're very generous. I was playing that mostly with my mustache. Okay. So I hope everybody's hearing me. When you roll your eyes, I know you can hear my corny old jokes. Okay, back to serious for a while, but not really very serious. Now, thank you for the use of your accordion. I'm going to feed it back to you now. Put your foot down and drag it to you. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All right. So, what is a talk I can deliver for today? I'm thinking, as I said earlier, about the unity principle. Through thoughts, words, and actions, we live the truth we know. We live the truth we know. So, what is the local truth at this time in our belief system? We have the teachings of Jesus and mostly the New Testament. Well, we connect also with the Abrahamic faiths, which are not only Christianity, but the birth of Islam originates with Abraham, and the birth of Judaism is also in our beliefs. And the Islamic world also honors Jesus. And you've heard this before, but the teachings of Jesus are important with Muslims because he was a prophet. They recognize him as a prophet. And Mary is mentioned some 6 times or more in the Holy Quran. And Jesus mentioned about 26 times in the Holy Quran. So they consider themselves Christians too. I am a blend. I am mostly a Catholic, mostly a Christian, but I'm also an acknowledgement of so many other valuable faiths. So we're acknowledging now the second Sunday of Advent. And that comes, Advent starts as close as possible to the 30th of November in preparation for Christmas. And now for Eastern Orthodox churches, some of them use the Julian calendar. We, of course, use the Gregorian calendar. But the Julian calendar, their Advent begins earlier, around November 15th, and lasts for about 40 days rather than the 4 weeks that we use mostly. And this is in parallel to the 40 days of Lent before Easter. So Advent is also known as the Nativity Fast, in Orthodox Christianity. And as an aside, I intend at some point, if schedules permit, to get into DC because, along the Georgia Avenue, they have many faith traditions represented. I've been able to go to a Baha'i faith service along Georgia Avenue, and there are so many others to choose from. And viewed through the eyes of Christianity, so many things will apply across our so-called boundaries. So anyway, the acknowledgement of Advent is important in our denomination of unity. And the unity principle of living the truth we know, that comes into our earliest teachings. And now some of us may have incorporated other teachings along the way, because not only have we been exposed to early Christian teachings, some of it was quite rigid, but here we are more enlightened as adults, and we can incorporate many ideas that may not have been accessible before. So in the different denominations that acknowledge the Advent, we have Catholic, Orthodox, Anglican, Episcopalian, Lutheran, Methodist, and Presbyterian churches. They all acknowledge the idea of the Advent. And now more and more Protestant and evangelical Christians are acknowledging and bringing into their beliefs the significance of Advent. Advent is a beginning, a starting point. And so they have begun to revive the spirit of the season through serious reflection, joyful expectation. and through observing traditional Advent customs. Now, another thing is the acknowledgement of Hanukkah. And some of us may have had exposure. Maybe some of you are of the Jewish faith. Great. All of the faiths are good. All of them, if we adhere to the basic principles. So, Hanukkah now, when does it start? This year, it started on the 28th of November. And this festival is a spiritual celebration. It's the duration of about 8 days. And it's ending on, let's see, 6 December, but maybe a little longer, because unlike Christmas, which has a fixed date in the Gregorian calendar, the date of Hanukkah depends on the Hebrew calendar, which is based on the lunar year and solar. You might refer to it as a lunisolar calendar. And Hanukkah takes place every year on the 25th day of the month of Kislev. Last time Hanukkah overlapped with Christmas was 2016, when the first night of the festival took place on Christmas Eve, Festival of Lights. And it's a strong holiday. And some people of the Jewish faith will remind themselves that, hey, the revival of Jerusalem as a holy place counts. And it is not a rival of Christmas, but is it well. So the significance of the Hanukkah festival is that Jewish people are taught the tale of the Maccabees, who somehow managed to defeat King Antiochus, the mighty troops. And in doing so, they also claimed the temple in Jerusalem, which had been left in a desecrated state. So to celebrate their victory, the Jewish people attempted to carry out a ritual lighting of the seven-pronged menorah, the candles that represent the stretching out of their quantity of oil for the lamps. They only thought they'd have one day, but somehow miraculously, they stretched out that resource to last for the lighting of all of the candles one day. So maybe you have a menorah too. I don't know. It's up to you. Maybe you have these teachings in your mind, and maybe you don't need the physical accoutrements. That's also fine. God knows your heart, in my opinion. God knows your heart. So that refers to the Festival of Lights, the 8 days. Now, in the Islamic world, also part of these teachings, the Islamic world, Muslims celebrate the Christian meaning of Christmas. The Christmas holiday is coming up upon us with colorful lights, joyous carols, and people going to churches to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And the name of Jesus in the Arabic language is Isa. And I've known people named Isa. And we've known people named Jesus, which is the Spanish pronunciation of the name Jesus. I even knew one gentleman many years ago. His name, he was named in English, and he was given the name Jesus, not Jesus, Jesus. And it was a huge burden for him. And his last name was James, so he preferred to be called James. He was possibly a little bit numbed or intimidated by being called Jesus. And so he didn't reveal himself as that name, but rather as James. So how we handle all these things is up to us. The teachings are broad. They have plenty of room for the diversity in our thinking. And so also we're anticipating the winter solstice. Now the winter solstice around December 22nd, you can look these things up on the internet. The web sites are so generous with their information. You can look up when precisely the winter solstice takes place. And look that up, because your soul personality and your concept of the cycles of life is important. In chatting just before we formally started the meeting, I was referring to the idea that the cycles of life are very important. We have the idea of the cycles very important as we look at the time. I was saying that I am very much an analog person, not so much a digital person, but with the analog clock, you have the cycles very important. You look at a clock face and it has the numbers 1 through 12. And that happens over and over again, where the hour hand will point again and again to the number 12. And it's a rotation. It is a cycle that manifests every 12 hours. And therefore, the cycle is valuable for us to acknowledge. The cycles return over and over again. And therefore, we have the idea of forgiveness and a return to the beginning of what we know and we desire to live by what we know. Let's refer to those things. Also now, when we talk about lights, the Festival of Lights, very recent we had the Festival of Diwali. And in the yogic world, in the Hindu world, we have the idea of the Festival of Lights, Diwali, in which people acknowledge the idea of the guru, the all-knowing teacher, who might or might not be in your life, or other beings of light who are important at that time. So the Festival of Diwali was very recent. And so that is also a festival of lights. This Festival of Lights has to do also with light coming around again. So just after the winter solstice, we have a rebirth where nights, the longest night of the year is at the solstice, and then the nights become shorter, the days become longer. And with light comes more wisdom. With light comes the revealing of the landscape. In times of darkness, light is coming back. More revealing nature of nature. In the ancient times, they needed light because they didn't have what we have today. So light, the Festival of Lights, goes across many faith traditions, not only in our unity roots of Christianity. So all of this is to say that we have a lot of common ground, and we remember through thoughts and words and actions, we live the truth we know. So maybe a little lightness here. I'm thinking about the movie Greaser's Palace. And there was a memorable line there. I love this thing. Here's a quote from the character who represents Jesus in that movie, Greaser's Palace. He said, "Bingo, gas station, motel, cheeseburger with a side of aircraft noise, and you'll be Gary, Indiana." So there you have it. The most immortal wisdom I can come up with right now is the character in Greaser's Palace. It's a worthwhile movie, very satirical, but it has some truths in it that may apply. So thanks for enduring that reference to popular media. So another point here I want to make, this is the season of giving also. Not only do we have the rebirth of light with the winter solstice, we have the idea of giving of the universe, the Big Bang originating the idea of giving. I look at the Big Bang as a giving forth of wisdom, the explosion of light into the darkness. That is a rebirth. We can look at that time and time again. It's a huge event when you think about it, a giving forth. And so in this season of giving, we can look again and again at ways we can serve. Maybe you don't have a lot of money, and I certainly do not. This lasting pandemic has been cruel if we look at it that way. But it has also been an opportunity to look at the time we have and invest some of that time in bettering lives even outside of our belief system. So in becoming generous, look at the time we have as well as the material resources. Everybody has a can or a package of food that we can give to a local program. That's a system of giving. I think also of Mother Teresa. Now, she was an amazing person. She had some very memorable quotes. She was a Catholic nun, and she was also very much a yogini, a woman practicing yoga. And her system of yoga corresponds with karma yoga, doing good acts. And she said, don't wait for leaders. Do it yourself now. And that's what she did. And she also said, if you can't feed 100 people, just feed one. And that's a creative effort too. That has to do with expanding our creativity. That's huge for those of us who live by freelance art and music. This freelance idea requires constant creativity, constant rehashing and reinvestigating what is important to us. So here I am, I'm rambling some possibly, but this giving forth, I'll bring up another point about giving forth. And this is the idea of planet Gaia. Now, in the Greek language, this is the word Gaia, that's the name. And there is a Gaia hypothesis. And this is very important. By the way, I'm looking at my internet connection. It might be unstable. I apologize in advance if you lose me here. But back to the point, the Gaia hypothesis says that Earth is a living organism and that human beings are a part of this organism. We are part of this living thing called Gaia. And the hypothesis says that as living beings on Gaia, part of Gaia, we humans are going to eventually leave this planet as a giving forth of life by planet Earth to another planet. And so we see that happening. We left planet Earth to go to the moon. We will be leaving planet Earth to go to Mars. And that is another form of giving forth an act of love, where Gaia, this living being, is giving forth light with an immigration to another celestial body. You may accept it exists. It exists in the minds of humans. And taking part in this simply means that psychically, maybe you will connect with the idea. If you believe it or not, that is fine, but that is what is happening. And so much giving forth is unlimited in spirit, in mind, or in body. So moving forward this, I'm a big fan of looking at the big picture in life, raising my sights a little bit higher than what is afoot, a little bit higher than the immediacy of life. Do I have to put food on the table? You bet, as do you. I can't just feed my family with good intentions. There's got to be something material there, something tangible. And the tangible things will come if I'm applying myself moment by moment, just as with you. So where is time going? This idea of the element of time, whether you have the Julian calendar, the lunisolar calendar, a lunar calendar, a Gregorian calendar, all of this cycling of time is going to start again and move forward. And so I ask, what am I doing with my time now? At this time, I'm living the truth that I know. I'm living it with all of you, because this is important as anything else is important, being in this present moment, to take part in the giving and therefore taking part in the receiving. So another point, I've mentioned before possibly that for some years I was working for the Virginia Employment Commission. And during those years, it wasn't very many years, almost 4 years, I guess. And I was helping veterans to get jobs and helping them to put together their resumes with workshops and helping them to learn how to apply for employment. It was tremendously rewarding work. And I did it with enthusiasm. And during that time, I also visited with employers and got to see the kind of work they were offering and helping veterans to market themselves for that work. And I learned a lot about the work of the ethics of work in the world of work. Hold down a job, you bet. I've held so many. I won't list them all. Maybe you've made a list. It's fascinating to look back at what you have done, to look at how you are doing today and how we overcome stress. There seem to be two major sources of stress in the world of work. One of them is thinking that your work has no value, that what you're doing is not useful to people. That is very stressful, to think that you don't have a contribution to make. You do. You have a contribution. And one of the favorite things we used to refer to was a satirical job description, that of stamping out widgets. Has anybody ever heard that expression, stamping out widgets? Well, maybe you're stamping out widgets and you don't know what the heck the widgets are going to be used for. You don't know who's picking up on your handiwork of stamping out widgets. And there's a problem. What about the widgets themselves? What about the product that you are working on every day? You're producing something. So what we have to do is look for the intrinsic value in the tasks we are accomplishing every day. Picture the people who are receiving your work, even if they're several layers removed from your production of widgets. Somebody out there needs your work. Therefore, you don't have to look at work as a meaningful drudgery that you have to be performing, but somebody is benefiting. So that's one stressor, thinking that you don't have the value of your work. Another stressor is having responsibility with your work, but not having authority, where you're responsible for certain accomplishments and products, but you don't have the control of how it is done or your limits or the potential. And that can be very stressful, having to measure up for responsibility, but not having the flexibility, not having the authority. And so the way you can overcome this is by remembering to do what you can do in the moment. And if something is not your responsibility, it belongs to someone else. So that responsibility can be gently put at the feet of some other person who does have that responsibility. And then you allow the cycle to happen, a cycle of responsibility. And so that we can achieve a cycle of renewal, And if we have the right wording, we will be able to achieve a lot by having the right time and the right place for what we want to tell people. And we can do that. We can neutralize the stressors by living our truth as we understand it, that unity principle coming back. I was very touched with the life and achievements and the passing of Colin Powell. He passed very recently. We look at his roots and the way he was living the truth as he knew it. And he cited in one interview that he started out in the world of work by mopping floors in a factory. And he put it very simply. He said, I guess I was seen as being very good at mopping floors. And so he was given the opportunity to work the machines in this factory. And he was the first person of color to use the machines, to learn the craft of the manufacturing process. And that was a big deal then. It may not be so big now, but he was mastering the craft and he was given the chance because he was mastering the art, the skill of mopping floors. And two or more of us on the screen right now had the responsibility of mopping floors and swinging a buffer in the Army. You know, it's one of the first tools every GI, yes, every GI learned how to swing a mop and swing a buffer because that's the way we maintain the area. And I remember picking up mop strings from the floor that were detached from the mop and thereby making the barracks or the other areas, work areas, look good by living our truth in the moment, living the truth as we understood it. So that's a cycle as well. We can't get away from cycles. They're all around us. So moving on from this, I have a little bit of music here. I want to look through forward to my notes. I always stray from my notes, but I want to acknowledge the cycles with another tune on the accordion. And so I'm going to borrow the accordion you pushed over at your feet. And so I'm returning to this box of harmonicas. And I'll just mention these white switches here, they are shifting the air inside of this accordion. You figured out by now that I have to squeeze this thing in order to make it work. It's the air going through these big harmonicas inside. That is what is making the sound. So on this side, I have a few harmonicas. And on the bass side also, these switches, they are also shifting the air on the left side, on the bass side. That's how I make this sound in a variety of ways. So I'm putting it on now, strapping on this bad boy. And here's another cycle of knowledge. I have to share this with you in an effort to bring the accordion across the boundaries of Zoom here. Well, you know, the guitar, the auto harp, which you have seen, the accordion, there's some common ground here. The common ground is apparent if you look at what we call the cycle of fifths. How many of you have one finger that can be pressed onto a piano keyboard? Therefore, good, look at those hands. Oh my goodness, unanimous. So everybody knows that they can sit at a piano and pick out a tune. You can use your good mind to find something. Well now, here is a cycle of fifths. I hope you can see this. On my left hand, I am positioning my fingers of buttons. This is an E, and then if I shift over to this innermost row, B, E. Now listen to this sound. Those are the notes, the sounds of 4 bass strings on a bass guitar and on the double bass in the orchestra. E, A, D, G. That's the cycle of fifths. Also the 4 bass strings on the guitar. Also on a chord organ, on a keyboard like this, where you have a set of buttons on the left side, they are arranged like these buttons. The auto harp has buttons that are arranged something like this. It's a cycle of fifths. So if you understand that relationship, you will have a lot of instruments literally under your fingers. Okay, so enough talking. I'm going to play now the holly and the ivy. How am I doing on time, Brother Neil? The holly and the ivy. So here I'm going into the song. Let's see what I'm going to have here. Here's a G, as in G whiz. It's not it yet. I have to orient myself with the key. So, the guitar calluses sometimes make it hard for me to feel these little stones. I can't see my left hand. I have to play it by feel. There's my C. That's what I need. Thank you for your good patience. You hear the same time signature. Wow. Thank you. I would rather be playing the melodies than singing them because these songs and some others are very sentimental to me. I remember my mother singing. She had a lovely voice. As a girl, she sang on one or more of the radio stations in San Antonio, Texas. My mother's side is from Texas and Mexico, and my father's side is from Sicily. So this accordion thing is a big deal in their culture, a huge deal. Well, I'd like to play the flute a little bit. I'm going to be coming to a close soon, and I'm going to use this as a beginning for a meditation, which will be over a few minutes. And now hold on to the sides of your chair. I'm going to move you around. I don't want you to get nauseous with this motion sickness thing. So here I have some flutes. I have the bass flute. That's this bad boy. Bass flute. Looks like a plumber's nightmare. And I have an alto flute. And I have the C flute. This is the most common one in an orchestral setting. So I have those three. I'm going to reposition. Hold on now. Hold on. Whoa, dude. Okay, so I'm also going to be using an electronic system, a digital delay. And this melody will have no melody will have no melody will have no melody will have no. Did you hear the echo? This will not be a surprise to you, but I'm going to rotate from the bass flute into the alto, into the C flute, and I'll give us a message through music. And so you'll know what this is when you hear it. Okay. Now we can rejoin the group. So very gently, we are releasing the contemplation, the meditation. Let's always remember we have time to meditate. There are plenty of techniques to look at. Anything from contemplating Holy Scripture to awareness of the breath, or the use of a mantra or holy name. So many techniques to choose from. So we're coming back now. And when we come back gently, we will preserve the peacefulness. And coming out of a meditation is the most important phase, which is why we do it gently. So do you need to move your shoulders a little bit? Do you need to rotate your neck? You're feeling your connectedness with the group and with the teachings. So I'm going to finish for now. And I would like to turn this back to our brother Neil. And so talk to us, Neil. What is next, sir?